Hello everybody for In-Spire-Life, New Ideas for a New World. I'm very grateful to be able to talk to Michael Tellinger today, here in Paris on his Europe tour. Michael, hello, and a very, very warm welcome to you here in France.
Thank you, Petra. It's been a wonderful time so far. We're meeting amazing people and that have been looking after me and showing me France and the wonderful reception we had in Paris at my presentation. And thanks for being there yourself.
Yes, well, it was a very amazing moment, and actually it was Isabelle Fouché who has this grace to reunite here in France all these groundbreaking new thinkers that break our frame of reference often, like Nassim Haramein, like you, like many others. And thanks to her for inviting you here.
Yeah, I was lucky. I met Isabel at Nassim's Research Institute in Hawaii last year, and already at that stage she said no, she must bring me to France to do a talk in Paris, and here we are, almost a year later, and it became a reality. So I'm very grateful to Isabel and Jean-Jacques.
Yes, they're amazing, and from here on you will carry on, just to let everybody know right away. You will carry on to Holland, to Germany, to Switzerland. Did I forget something?
Austria.
All right, I'm Austrian, so good. Well, Michael, for those who don't know you yet, you're a scientist and author. You are an explorer, and many call you the South African Indiana Jones.
I think the real Indiana Jones is actually Sam Osmanagich.
Right. And you have made amazing discoveries about ancient vanished civilizations in this beautiful part of South Africa, where many people just discarded it, didn't even look at it, or didn't want to realize it. And here comes Michael Tellinger and finally puts the fingers on something that is really amazing. It could be the cradle of humanity, and at the same time it explodes all frame of references of our history books, of our scientific books. And would you like to explain us what you discovered there? And I'm sorry, in a little time frame.
In 30 seconds,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Okay.
I'll give you 40. Go ahead. 1, 2.
Well, what I was fortunate enough to discover, and again, I believe that these things are led by divine intervention and divine inspiration. So I'm just the instrument and the tool being used to get this information to the people of the world. It's not my discovery, as I'm just the instrument. So I was able to put together a more cohesive understanding of the many stone ruins that lie scattered throughout southern Africa. And, you know, these ruins are not, this is not something new. Knowledge of these ruins go back 500 years to the Portuguese when they first arrived on the Mozambican coast and discovered these stone structures and started writing about them, and discovered Great Zimbabwe and started writing about that. And so the fascination with these stone ruins goes back 500 years. But unfortunately, it's been grossly misunderstood because of what you said, the perception that nothing good has ever come out of Southern Africa. It was just this forgotten part of the world with a sparsely populated part of the world, and nothing of significance has ever come out of Southern Africa. Well, nothing can be further from the truth, because my discovery shows that the stone circles, as they've become affectionately called, the stone ruins of Southern Africa, are so vast in numbers that it clearly points that there's a vanished civilization that we know nothing about. And there are more than 10 million of these stone ruins. That's my discovery.
Say that again. Say that again. Yeah. 10 million. How could you not realize it, not talk about it?
Well, because the others didn't do the counting. They just, you know, nobody has gone to the trouble to actually look at all of Southern Africa and go to the effort of counting them.
How did you count them? How did you do it?
I didn't count them one by one. That's not possible, right?
but how did you realize that?
Yeah, what I realized is that the estimation in numbers have been going up, because in in 1891, Theodore Bent estimated there were about 4,000 ruins. By 1974, Roger Summers estimated there were about 20,000 ruins. And then I got involved in 2007, and I thought by 6 months after there must be at least 100,000 of these ruins. This was confirmed by an archaeologist, retired head of archaeology at Wits University in Johannesburg. So I went, hold on, 100,000? So I thought, let me be more scientific about this. So I started looking at Google and at aerial photographs, and the many aerial photographs that were supplied to me by Johan Heine, who really introduced me to these stone circles, who was trying for 15 years to bring the stone circles to the attention of the South African authorities and the archaeologists, but he was just bluntly ignored. And then I got involved, and I went and I counted them as best as I could from Google Earth, which anyone that goes onto Google Earth will know what I'm talking about.
So you need, actually, excuse me, you need a overview. You need a view from the airplane or from the helicopter to finally grasp what is going on ground. Because on ground, everything is either eroded or covered by grass or...
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's only when you start looking at it from the air that you realize there's a lot more that you don't see. Okay. Even if when you're walking on the mountains and only afterwards you realize, oh my goodness, where I walked, there are many stone ruins that I was walking on top of, but you don't realize that you're walking on top of stone ruins that are covered by soil. You only see it from the air. And I did a calculation as best as I could. I got averages, how many per 100 square meters, how many per hectare, how many per square kilometers, and then I did an average. And when I got the number, I was astounded. I counted it like 10 times to make sure I wasn't making a mistake, because the total was more than 10 million.
Amazing.
And then at that moment I realized that we're dealing with a vanished civilization that no one has recognized before.
So then you determined the age, I imagine, how old these sites are.
The age was, obviously a lot older than anything has ever been postulated before.
Right.
Where the problem has been is that most archaeologists and historians that looked at these stone structures were looking at the stone structures that have been occupied in more recent times and renovated to suit the needs of the most recent occupants. And that's a huge problem.
Right.
So you get confused with that kind of information that presents you. It's only when you go to the oldest version of these stone circles that nobody has touched yet, and you realize that they have no doors and entrances, and that they exist in large clusters that cover vast areas of sometimes 100 by 100 kilometer areas that seem to be the remains of one vast settlement like that. And they have no doors and entrances, and they're all connected by channels, that we're dealing with something else and not human dwellings. But it was when I discovered the fact that the stones have sound and acoustic properties, and that the stones ring like bells, that I realized we're dealing with a whole different understanding of the laws of nature and physics and science. And we're only getting into that area of understanding now with resonance and our understanding of resonance and frequency. And what I realized that these people, whoever they were, probably the first humans, most likely, were using sound as a source of energy. And that was just a huge breakthrough, because that then caused pretty much a tidal wave of knowledge and information that suddenly started to make sense. Everything started to fall into place, and the discovery became a lot easier once you got that one critical key that opened a very important door.
It permitted you to connect all the dots, right?
Yes.
I love this phrase. You started your conference with it, connecting all the dots, not only focalize on one dot.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So what are these sites made out of, these stones? They are silica. What do you call it in English again?
Silica. But look,
silica,
most
right?
Stone on Earth is made up of silica, and this is what people don't realize.
Right.
Sandstone is virtually pure silica. So, and most stones and mountains on Earth, granites and dolerites and sandstone, is like 90% or more silica.
Right.
So we're dealing with silicon-based technology. That's really what it is, at its most basic level. Using the silica in its natural ingredients, not having to extract it because you want to sell it to somebody. So you use it in its natural form where it is, to store energy, store information, conduct energy, conduct information, create vortexes, create electromagnetic fields, and use sound to do all these things. Sound is the primary fundamental foundation of all of this technology, is sound energy.
This frequency, this vibration, and it's connected to Earth, and the different frequencies and vibrations, if I understood it right, from the Earth.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they could.
That's right. And the reason I realized that is because for people that are watching this that are familiar with cymatics or the study of sound manifesting into physical form, when you put sand on a metal plate and you put sound frequencies through it, you'll see the shape, these beautiful shapes that are created, manifesting sound into physical form. You realize that every frequency is represented by a beautiful, unique shape. Right. And it's when I realized that it had to do with sound, I also then realized that the sound frequencies, the stone circles, were actually manifestations and representations of a sound frequency at that particular point.
That's wonderful. And now, when you have discovered that, what is the conclusion for you right now, where we are at right now? What do these? What was the service of these sites? What did they serve?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because you start connecting the dots between the ancient Sumerian civilizations and Africa, and realizing that there's a huge activity and huge connection between the Sumerian texts, yes, and what was going on in Africa, in southern Africa, and you realize that this is where the gold was being dug, where the gold came from. In pretty much all ancient times, most of the gold seems to have come from southern Africa, and this is a huge breakthrough, because it continues to come from southern Africa, and then I realized as well that it's not just about the gold, but it's actually about the human condition, who we are as a species, why we are here, and where do we come from. And I realized that the stories in the Sumerian texts about these gods coming down, these advanced beings that come to earth, the Bible refers to them as the Elohim, and they created humanity. And the reason they created this new species that Sumerian texts refer to as Lulu Amelu is because they needed help to get the gold out of the ground. So a new species was created to get the gold out of the ground, and it all happened in southern Africa. So what you said much earlier is that this is most likely the cradle of humankind. I think you're correct, because Adam's calendar, which I call the flagship among the millions of stone ruins, is actually referred to by ancient African knowledge keepers, or the African shaman. Yeah. It's known as Inzalo Yilanga, or birthplace of the sun, where the gods created humanity. And you start seeing all these dots being connected, and it points towards southern Africa as the cradle of humankind, connected to the gold mining activities of the Sumerian entities known as the Anunnaki, or the Anunna gods.
All right. And then what I found really interesting as well was that you connected to the other old civilizations that came afterwards, like Egypt, even Greece, Athens, everywhere, and you showed that their sites actually probably served for the same reasons, not for cult service, whatever it was, or religious service, but as an energy generator for these civilizations and ancient civilizations. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and this is when you start understanding the science behind it, and the fact that these people had advanced knowledge of the laws of nature, and that silicon-based technology, silica and water were used as the two primary sources or substances, water and silica. You realize that all these ancient sites they're not for worshipping, or they're not calendars, or they're not there to tell you what time of the year it is. Those are just functions built into these ancient sites, but these ancient sites are actually machines. All of them, each one of them is a giant machine and a device that performs a specific function. And, and because they're silicon-based technology, just like your computer or your alarm clock or your watch that's powered by silica or solar panels, right, that's powered by the light, the sun, that can be activated by the light and by sound, these ancient machines, whether it's the pyramids or Stonehenge or Adam's calendar or any of these ancient sites that are made up of stone, monolithic structures, are activated by the movement of the sun. And that's why they are aligned to the movement of the sun.
Beautiful.
And that includes the sites in Egypt. You know, all the Karnak and Luxor and all the pyramids and all the other ancient sites in Egypt. You realize that those are not places of worship. They're machines. They're huge energy-generating machines that were used for putting some sort of messages or energy into the sky and creating some sort of a grid around planet Earth. That's one of the things, and possibly also for teleportation and transmutation and things that sound like science fiction to us, unless obviously you watch Star Trek, then it's no longer science fiction.
Yes. And sound levitates, and if you put all these dots together, it becomes so beautiful and so interesting. I mean, your life, you are, I think, a very passionate person anyways, but it must be just mind-boggling every day that you make these discoveries one after the other. And so now, Michael, would you like to add something about these discoveries you made, about these ancient historic places?
Yeah, the most important thing I need to add is, what do we do with all this discovery? Because if we're just going to delve in the past and marvel at this advanced technology and what happened in the past, and we can't connect it to the present, to us, who we are, and why we're here and what we're doing on Earth right now, if we can't see the connection, then all this knowledge and information is completely wasted. And I believe that this is possibly where my greatest contribution is at this time, is being able to show is how these ancient civilizations and what they were doing connects to us today, and how money was introduced, how the enslavement of humanity on various levels, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's mental enslavement and spiritual enslavement, how this was imposed on humanity, and how it came through the ancient bloodlines that were imposed on planet Earth through certain human beings that were chosen by the gods or the Anunnaki or the Elohim, whatever you want to choose to call them, and how they chose specific people from amongst the humans to control the people. Mm-hmm. They were given advanced knowledge, advanced technology. As we now see, they had very powerful advanced technology. And they were given these tools to control the rest of humanity. One of the most important tools they were given, these ancient priest kings, was money. And it's when I realized that money was introduced, and at this stage it seems by the Elohim or the Anunnaki, to humanity through the priest kings, who were the first bankers in the world, using the ancient temples as the first banks, and issuing the first forms of money to the people that they controlled through clay tablets. I realized that nothing has changed. That these same ancient royal bloodlines can be found in the banking bloodlines of today and the royalty of today that is still controlling the world today, every single living, breathing human being, through the same system of enslavement. And that enslavement is called money. And the laws that they create to keep the money system in place. And I can say this because of my own actions in the South African Supreme Court in Johannesburg and the Constitutional Court against the banks, trying to break their barrier of protection. But that's impossible because the entire system is structured for thousands and thousands of years through the laws that protect the money makers to keep them in power. So you will never be able to penetrate that bubble, because the moment it's penetrated and broken, the entire financial system collapses.
But I'm sure, Michael, you have a solution for that. What is on your mind about this new strategy? Is there I mean, it's not only, it's money, it's, we hear them new, how do you call it, power nodes that are being built up by a company I don't want to mention right now, but that buys all these new highest technologies, nanotechnologies, etc., and will gain a lot of control if you don't stop them. Money makes the world go round, so what can we do?
Well, that's not really true. Money does not make the world go round. People make the world go round.
Thank you.
And this is what we forget. We've been so indoctrinated, so brainwashed, that most people now believe that money makes the world go round. No, that's not true. That's the lie that's been perpetuated for so long that most people now believe it without questioning it for 1 second. So let me just remind everybody here that people make the world go round. Money does nothing. People do everything.
Right.
People plant the seeds. People grow the food. People develop the machinery and the technology and build the rockets and the latest computers. People have the capacity for infinite love, and people create the arts and culture. Money does nothing. Money just gets in the way between people wanting to do this, and most people never get the opportunity to do what they love to do or what their passion is, because as soon as you're born, that passion starts to get beaten out of us as we send our children to school, which are really indoctrination camps, to create a future workforce for those corporations that then employ the people, and they reward them with money. So you see the trap, and so this is why so little emphasis is being given on artistic and cultural abilities of our children at school, and everything goes towards accounting and mathematics and science and physics, because that's how they control people. The moment you express your creative skills, and that's not good for the corporations.
Exactly.
They can't control people with creative minds. They try to control them by putting them into corporate jobs, but that doesn't always work. So the solution to this is there's only one solution, and that is to stop using money, because we will never be able to overcome those that have all the laws under their belt, that control the legal system, that control the supply of money for the entire planet. If we think we're going to beat them at using money, it's never going to work. The only way we can overcome this is stop using their money and start living in a world without money, where people use their God-given talents or their acquired skills for the benefit of everybody in their community. And that's a system that I call contributionism, and in Africa it's more generally known as Ubuntu in its ancient form.
Right. Now I believe this exposes a lot of belief systems and makes many people react. Even when I heard your conference, I thought in the beginning, oh my goodness, how is this going to work? It's not so much about how to get away from money, but how to get away from this power belief.
Yeah.
I need a master and a slave, in a way.
Yeah,
this is still very anchored. And I felt inside how it made me react. So
yes.
Now, after having reflected about it, and I can tell you, I reflected about it a lot, and I felt it in my heart, and it is very beautiful. Is there a way this can be implemented already in our society right now? You are so far ahead, and I think it is so beautiful what you permit everybody to envision it already.
Well, what I love is when I hear people like you, because it reminds me 10 years ago when I first started thinking about this, in 2005, when I was writing Slave Species of God, and I realized, oh my God, money is a synthetically introduced tool of enslavement. It was like a ton of bricks that hit me when I realized this, and all this information just downloaded from some invisible Akashic records or somewhere that I just got all this information, and I went, oh my God, we need to move away from money. That's the problem on this planet, is money. And I started the process, and I now can relate to people when they respond. When I say to people, we need to create a world without money, where there's no money, no barter, no trade, no value attached to anything, where everybody contributes their God-given talents or acquired skills for the greatest benefit of all in their community. I can see how people react where their level of consciousness is. And I'm not saying that they're not clever or they're cleverer, but it's just a level of plugging into the universal consciousness.
Definitely.
And some people just need that little seed, and they go, ding, and they got it. They download it and they have it completely.
Absolutely.
Other people take a little while and they have to think through it. Some people just keep fighting and resisting, and they just don't want to go there.
Yes.
And the only reason they don't want to go there is fear. It's all about fear, because the moment you suggest a world without money, the first questions that go into people's minds are, how am I going to survive? How am I going to survive? How am I going to pay for anything if there's no money? And how are things going to work? How am I going to get things if there's no money? So they don't think about it rationally. They respond completely irrationally from a position of fear, asking questions that are driven by fear, not questions that are driven by enlightened thought.
And empowerment. I take my responsibility for my life and my creativity, and I contribute to my life.
Yes.
Nobody else is doing it.
Now, just to support this, now once you start working through this, and I must say that this is why I wrote the book, Ubuntu-Contributionism, a blueprint for human prosperity, and that'll be available in German probably in the next 2 months.
Yes.
Hopefully by the end of May, that should be out in German, and then shortly after that in French. That's why I wrote the book, because I want people to go through the process. I put all the information that's taken me 10 years to figure out. People can get in 2 hours. You can get it. Sometimes you can get it in 5 minutes. It's taken 10 years to work out, because as you go through the process, you realize how easy it is. Once you're over the first few hurdles of no money, and how will things work without no money,
right,
and you see how simple it is and how it actually changes our world of scarcity, because everybody is told every day we live in a world of scarcity. There's a scarcity of everything. No, there's a scarcity of everything because the corporations that make it control it. There's not a scarcity because there's not enough water, or there's not enough gold, or there's not enough food. There's plenty of everything for everyone on this planet in abundance that we can't ever consume. But we're told that it's the opposite, because corporations control it. And our governments control it. And if you don't have money, you can't get it. So if you remove money, then everybody will have access to everything. And the scarcity mentality gets converted into an abundance of everything on all levels beyond our wildest belief.
Thank you, Michael.
But that takes some people a little bit of time to get there. When you remove money, you're removing the hurdle to all progress. You know, right now, think about it. Millions of people go to the bank every day asking for a loan because they want to start a bakery, or they want to build a well in the community, or they want to, start farming fish or whatever. Something that the community needs. And the bankers are the hurdle to the progress. They say, sorry, we're not going to give you money. I know that you make the best bread in the world, and everybody in your community needs bread, but we're not going to give you the money to start a bakery to feed your community. Because we can't see it working as a financial model.
Right.
And so the bankers are the hurdle to progress. Not people want to do it, and the money keeps getting in the way on every level. So, and also, you need to remind people where money comes from. Remember, goes back thousands of years.
Yeah.
Money gets created out of nothing, out of thin air. It has no value whatsoever. It's just a piece of paper that gets created by a private family, the banking families, and these private families are basically run the world from the central banks in every country, and these central banks issue the money for that country that is controlled by these few banking families. Central banks are not owned by the governments, and most people don't know this. So this is part of the enlightenment and the growth of consciousness and the education that we have to share. Once people get this, once they understand that our central banks are not owned by the government or the people, they'll understand where the problem lies in 10 seconds.
Exactly. Yeah. Michael, this is so beautiful, and I think you are one of the very, very, very rare people that dare to go to these places yet in our society. One must mention it, and has the capacity to go through it until the end and push it through and make this model somewhere work already in your head and then in your heart and then send it out to the collective. But nature, if we take nature doesn't, it's always abundant if we let it do its job. It works very, very well.
Yeah,
Everybody gets everything without
exactly.
money. How does this work?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Nobody
so
needs
remember
money.
that we're the only species on this planet that has to earn money to live on our own planet. I mean, it's an insane thought. Anything other than that is sane. This is the insane thought, that we need money to live on our own planet.
And evolution will always take place, even much better.
And remember that from the moment we are born, we have no choice. You are born into slavery as a human being.
Right.
You have to earn money. If you don't earn money, you will eventually go to jail.
Right. Correct.
You'll end up in jail, whether you like it or not. How is that freedom? How is that seen as free will? No, it is absolute enslavement on the most inhumane level that anyone could have ever come up with, and this is what we need to break.
Tell me, Michael, how do you take it to the next level from here on?
Well, this is why I wrote the book, and I hope that the book sells millions of copies. Not for me to be rich. Obviously at the moment the book is an income to the Ubuntu movement.
All
it's
right.
the main.
What is the Ubuntu movement? Let's go there.
Well,
Let's
the
talk
Ubuntu
about
movement is a movement that was based on the philosophy of creating a society without money.
Right.
So we call it the Ubuntu Liberation Movement, that promotes societies and communities that function on the principles of contributionism, or ancient African philosophy of Ubuntu, where people live in united communities, doing whatever they are skilled at or good at, so that benefits not just themselves, but everybody in the whole community. And so we're now, this is now 3 years old already, and we're now starting to build the first sort of Ubuntu community in South Africa, in the town that I live. And it's not easy. It's difficult. It's very, very hard. And for that, we need support of the people from around the world. And we want, we're looking for 1,000 people to donate $10 a month.
Yes.
Or 10 euros a month, so that we can move mountains. With that kind of money, we can physically move mountains.
Right.
And create that first Ubuntu community. Now, this is important because people ask, how do you get from here to there?
Yes.
And it's not impossible, but it's going to take a few small steps to get from here to there. And I believe that the answers lie in small towns and small communities, where people can get together quickly and decide that we're going to create a free energy device or an alternative energy source. We're going to use that alternative electricity source to create a number of community projects, whether it's bakeries, dairies, fish farms, growing food, creating building materials, alternative kind of building models. Whatever the community needs to have abundance can be placed on this foundation of electricity.
Correct.
That can then power up the whole town and community and allow people to do whatever they need to do because they've got a supply of electricity. So now you start to understand why the supply of electricity is so fiercely controlled, and why Nikola Tesla was removed very quickly, because he gave the world free energy more than 100 years ago already.
Right.
So in a nutshell, I believe that one small town or small community that can master the Ubuntu or contributionist philosophy and become abundant will be the catalyst to get the entire world, starting with the towns around them and rapidly spreading out. Absolutely. So that the whole world becomes a contributionist community. And the reason I say this is, once you have an Ubuntu contributionist community, it is impossible for surrounding communities to carry on living on capitalistic, money-driven principles. It's not possible for them to survive. And it shows you that it's the light that penetrates the darkness. Okay? The darkness never penetrates the light. It's the other way around. So now we're spreading the light into the neighboring communities. And without doing anything, without forcing them, it's by choice. And if people don't understand this, I must draw a very quick distinction between Ubuntu-Contributionism communities and self-sustained communities.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Because that is critical. Some people say, well, there are many communities like this around the world. No, there is not one community like this around the world. Not one. Because if there was one, the whole world would be an Ubuntu community already. And the reason is because self-sustained communities are about exactly that. Self-sustainability. Looking after yourself. Me, 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 me. It's just a bigger version than me.
Yes, understand.
Okay? It's 1,000 people saying, well, we'll take care of ourselves, screw everybody else.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
It's not the collective what is going to be created now. Yeah.
You're isolating yourself inside a huge ocean of problems.
Okay.
And sooner or later, if you've created a self-sustained community with everything you can imagine, the people outside your community are going to come climbing over the walls to take from you what you've got.
Right.
So you've got to create a contributionist community that creates abundance, not just for yourself, but for the communities around you.
Yes.
And this is why when you read my book, or if you ever be for people that read my book, you'll see that there's a very critical model here. You have to create 3 times as much as you need.
Right. Okay.
So that you create enough for yourself, and the rest you make available to the people and the communities around you. At a fraction of the price that they can get it in their capitalist-driven communities.
Okay, so there is a price.
Sorry?
So there is a price or an exchange.
No, this is just the transition phase.
Oh,
this
that's
is
the transition phase.
We're not going to go from where we are to contributions. So these are some of the first steps that we have to take. But once you start working through the steps and the chronological steps, you realize how quickly this can happen. And just because there may be many steps doesn't mean it's going to take a long time.
Right.
It's just we have to start the first step, then the next step, and it's going to grow exponentially. And if you use electricity, for example, as the foundation, and I use that because I believe it is truly the catalyst that can unite a community. If you find a source of electricity for the whole community, and you say, right, everybody's going to get free electricity, but in return, you have to work for 5 hours a week or 3 hours a week in one of the community projects, whether it's making butter or baking bread or creating parks or looking after the sports fields or whatever. And you can change every week to something else to keep stimulated. But everybody has to work for 3 or 5 hours a week in one of the community projects. Can you see how much abundance you can create? Just by supplying the people free electricity and making them unite around that one element. It is truly spectacular.
I think that's why free energies have been suppressed for such a long time, because people know exactly that with free energies everything will start off.
Yes.
It will just go like that.
Free energy is the catalyst to break down the financial system. The moment people have free energy, you cannot control them. There's no way you can control them.
We're working on it.
Good. I know that many people are working on it, and it's gonna come very, very soon. I know from the people that are in contact with us, Foster Gamble and the Thrive movement, Nassim Haramein, and those are just the people that we know about. There are thousands, if not millions, of people out there that probably already have a free energy device, but they just don't know what to do with it.
And you have also assisted on the BEM, Breakthrough Energy Movement, the last 2 years, right, in 2012 and 13, together with Foster Gamble and all these people. And it's a beautiful contribution what you do. I have a very personal question, Michael, quickly.
Yeah.
In between, into brackets, what do you do when you get discouraged and sometimes discouraged?
I go stand on the edge of a cliff and I contemplate jumping. But so far I haven't jumped yet.
What picks you up again? Because there's so many people, I'm sure, that like you feel like pioneers right now and say, okay, but this blow right now, that was just too much. What would you recommend them? Because I'm sure you lived through so many situations like that.
I think I'm not sure what drives me. What drives me is the absolute belief that this model is the perfect model for this planet, and not just this planet. It's actually a universal model. This is how everything in the universe works, because it's a natural flow. It follows the natural order of things
and law
of unity as opposed to division and separation.
Correct.
And remember that it's only through unity that you can get infinite diversity. Because that's the model of the universe.
Correct.
Okay, unified, harmonic, coherent resonance.
Yes.
Because if the universe does not resonate in unified coherence, then there's chaos and it'll break apart. So we can see it in all the structures of life, of from the atom to the DNA to our planet, the solar system, the galaxies. And the universe is just a bigger version of that. And we can see how these natural systems are at work here. And they all operate within coherent, harmonic resonance.
Beautiful.
So that's, I think, what drives me, because I know that this is possible, and I also believe in higher, I guess, spiritual guidance here. And I believe that I'm doing this for reasons that were pre-planned. I'm just the messenger, and I'm here to do this job. So I'll do it until I stop doing it and somebody else takes over.
Well, I think they found the right man. Beautiful. Michael, if I ask you, how can we support you? How can we give you... what would you like to ask for? How can we support you?
Well, first of all, try and absorb and understand the philosophy of contributionism and Ubuntu.
I will put the title of the book, of course, and your website, everything on my video on below.
Try and understand it and go and realize that it's very, very simple, and really internalize it in your heart.
Yes.
Make it part of you. Resonate with it so that it comes naturally.
Yes.
And if people ask you about it, you have all the answers, because they come from the heart. They don't come from a book or from some... It's a natural process. It's a natural order of thing. And I can tell you, out of thousands and thousands and thousands of questions that I've faced over the last 10 years from people, not one has created a problem for the contribution system. There is no insurmountable problem that we have found. And that is incredible. It is absolutely incredible.
All right.
Everything is solvable. Every problem that you inject into the system has a solution.
Beautiful. And
that blows my mind. So that's the one way. Internalize this, learn about it.
Okay.
And if you can support the Ubuntu movement anyway, financially, unfortunately, we're going to have to use money to free ourselves from the money.
Right.
And there's still many people that email me and say, well, you don't practice what you preach. Well, we're still trapped in the capitalistic system.
Yes, yes.
And unfortunately, this is why we need to use money to free ourselves from the money.
Okay.
So if you can make a small contribution, then go onto our website and please do so. We're looking to getting 1,000 contributing members around the world, and frankly, that shouldn't be difficult. But at this stage, we're not there. We're nowhere anywhere near close to it.
All right.
We have a lot of supporters. Hundreds of thousands of supporters, but very few that are making a contribution towards us keeping this thing alive.
Okay.
Because at the moment, the only reason why this is alive and continuing is because I do what I do. I come to Europe and I travel and I do presentations, and the money I make from these presentations we use to stay alive, to keep this thing going.
Yes.
So, there are no funders behind this. There's no magic wand. This is walking the talk, I believe.
Exactly. It's the transmutation phase. And my grandmother always said, the cause heals the means. You have to put it in to get to this place. Now, so contributing to it, informing others about it, right? Reading your book.
That's
and,
it. And then
getting used to this new paradigm and integrating it.
And then try and get the people in your community together, share it with everybody there, and figure out ways how you can lay the foundation for our contribution as community, wherever you are, especially if you're in a small town. Because people can start getting clean water. If you're near a river, you can put some hydro turbines in the water to get electricity. You can come up with alternative sources of electricity, and very soon there'll be free electricity devices. I know that. And then start putting together the critical community projects that will help everybody in your community. First of all, make sure that everyone's got enough food. And, in Europe that might not be so prevalent, but in Africa and in South Africa, 50% of unemployment creates huge problems, and people don't have food. It's a simple thing that people just don't have food to eat.
Right.
So we have a very simple task. The money that we get in our monthly contributions goes into creating these community projects, creating clean water and food to start off with. Then looking after the orphans, the AIDS orphans, and the aged, the old people that can't work, that have got no food, no jobs, no one to look after them. So these are creating a community kitchen so we can actually feed the aged and the orphans and the homeless. And so these are the community projects that we're busy with right now as we speak.
Right.
But we can't do it with me earning a few euros doing talks in Europe. That's why we ask people to make a contribution, 10 euros a month. And if you can afford it, make a larger contribution. But we need to know that every month we can keep this thing going.
Yes.
Because if we don't get support from outside and it's just going to depend on me and Louise, then it's not going to last very long. It's going to be a beautiful dream and it's going to collapse very quickly. So we need as much help as we can to keep this thing going. But also in people's own communities, do what we've started doing, as I suggested. Try and start the foundation of your own community, of your own contribution as community, and push it as hard as you can.
Yeah. While I listen to you, I hear Marianne Williamson. I don't know if you've heard of her. She is planning for a Congress place in California, also trying to get the means together with the same motivation, saying we are still in the same system. Please vote for me so I can get into the place. And then from here on, I want to create a government from the people, for the people, by the people. And it's the same energy. It's beautiful. It comes out in all different places of the earth. And I think we should also, when sometimes we feel maybe a little bit discouraged about what's happening around, look at this, focalize on that, support it. That's why I intentionally asked you, where do you need help and how can we sustain you? Well, thank you very much, Michael.
Oh, thank you very much, Petra.
Anything else you want to add?
Not really, just thanks for taking interest and thanks for helping to spread the contributionism and Ubuntu message to the people of Europe, and I hope it reaches millions of people.
Yes, I hope so too. It's my big pleasure and honor. Thank you for that our paths have crossed, and I hope to talk to you soon about this project and inform about it more.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You have a lovely day.
And you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.